Hello my friends, welcome back to episode 4 of how to build a budget using Google Sheets. If this is your first time joining us, then you need to go down into the description of this video and find the link that takes you to episode number 1, where I will show you from the beginning how to create a budget that looks like this. A fully functional budget for your family that is versatile and independent of any other program or system out there. My wife and I have been using this program for about 5 years now. I've adapted it numerous times, and I personally have not found a program out there that is as versatile and all-inclusive as this one. So last time we saw each other, we programmed our bar up here at the top, we finished up all these tables here on the right side, and we got our comprehensive expense tracker all set up. I told you that I was going to show you how to do some conditional formatting, so let's go ahead and do that now. If you look over here in the demo, the different types of expenses have different colors, and those are going to correspond here with the pay method. So let's just do that really quick. I've already kind of set up, I have kind of a yellow, a green, an orange, and a purple up here, and that's how we're going to do these ones. So what I want you to do is click and drag all of column F, or the column in which you have your payment methods, so that you've selected the entire column. And then you're going to come up here to Format, Conditional Formatting. What conditional formatting is it is a system that allows you to tell the computer, hey, if you see something like this, I want you to make it look a certain way. So in this case, if you'll notice again looking back here, credit is green, debit is blue, cash is purple. That's conditional formatting. I did not have to come in here and do that manually. So having highlighted this whole column, it'll probably default you to something like this. Cell is not empty, default green, whatever. So format cells if this is where you're going to program it. This is the condition that you are setting, that if it is met, the computer will do something. So if you click that list, you can see lots of different options here. And we're going to do, for this one, we're going to do text is exactly. And then it's asking, okay, so if the text is exactly what? And in this case, we're going to start with debit. So just type debit. You don't need to use quotation marks or anything like that in this case. Debit, and then you'll notice already it is conditionally formatted. All the debits have turned green because that's what the formatting style is currently set as. I want to change this so that it matches the green up there. So I'm going to come to the fill color, select none, and then I'm going to come to the color and select, I'm pretty sure it was the light green, but obviously that's too light. So I'm going to come back in here. There we go. So now it's written in green, kind of to match that, and press done, and there you go. Anytime you pop up the word debit, it'll turn green. If you delete that and were to click on credit, it does not turn green. So with this whole column selected, you can add a new rule and do the exact same thing for credit, check, and cash. All with different colors based on however formatting system that you want to have represent. This is obviously not necessary to the actual function of the budget, so this is only something that you need to do if you are very visually inclined to comprehending certain things. In case I went a little fast there, let me just kind of go through this one more time. Once you've highlighted the area, you're going to come up, tell the program what to look for. We're looking for text is exactly credit in this case, because I already did the debit. I like to remove the background color, so I'm in the highlight section here. The fill color, none. That's going to get rid of all background colors. And then in the font color, which is what the A is here, I'm going to select for my credit, I'm going to do a nice light yellow. Now I have decided that I don't like having credit be that yellow because I think that that yellow is too close to the orange that I want my check. So I changed credit to red. So now I want to show you how you can change a conditional formatting. So let's say you're out here doing your own thing, right? Blah, 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 and you decide that you want to change things. You can highlight, again, whichever cell you want to fix, come back up here to conditional formatting, and you'll see this box will pop up and show you some rules that are in place. You can select whichever one you want. In this case, I'm trying to change the credit. So I'm just going to click on this one that says credit. And here's my rule that I just set up a second ago. I'm just going to come back in here and change the font a different red. Press done, and now it's been edited. So that's how you edit conditional formatting rules. One other tiny note really quick, if you ever have a drop-down menu where you've selected something and you want to get rid of that, well, you notice that there's no blank option here to make that go away, just so that that cell is empty like these ones. All you have to do is click on it and press backspace. So that's essentially how you conditional format. Let's apply that to numbers. Now, this was applying it to text. Let's apply it to numbers. So if you look back here at the demo, I had these in different colors. We're going to do that now. I'm going to highlight this entire row, row 6 of all the totals, and I'm going to conditional format. And what I want it to do is if the number is a positive number, I want it to show green. Like back here, positive number. And what a positive number represents down here in the balance row is that we have more money left in that envelope. We have not gone over budget. We have stayed within or under budget, and green is good. So what I want to do, we're going to highlight that whole row, set up a conditional formatting, and the condition is if it is greater than 0. So if the cell is greater than 0, what do we want it to do? I'm totally okay with the default green, so I'm just going to click on that, and there you go. It's just going to pop up green. You can change it however you want, right? This is a little bit of a lighter shade of green than this is, or not. Maybe it's just my eyes. Maybe I'm just nuts. For those people who know me, they would probably suggest that is the most likely conclusion. I'm now going to add another rule to the same area, that if the text is equal to 0, and I'm going to use another default setting. I'm just going to click and select the yellow and press done. And that's what I had here. Again, if it was 0, then it was yellow. Honestly, I don't know why that's not green. And then I'm going to add one more. If the cell is less than 0, if something is less than 0, and obviously it's going to be a negative number, I'm going to select the red and press done. So now you can see that it's going to automatically format for me. If we've gone over budget, it's going to be in red. Again, it's just a really easy visual way for at the end of the month when my wife and I sit down and we go through the budget and we're like, okay, how did we do this month? It's just really easy for us to see, to visually comprehend how we performed on our budget. And again, if you're not really a visual person, maybe this isn't something that would appeal to you. For me, I find that colors really help my eyes travel a lot more easily. Same thing over here in the tithing column. Again, just highlight the whole column, conditional format it so that if the text equals yes, have it be green. If the text equals no, have it be red. Coming back down here to the monthly bills, if you want to incorporate some kind of visual response to whether you have or have not paid your bills, you can do that too. That'd be a really good place to do that. You could do something down here where if your balance is higher or if you've had an increase in that particular asset category, then you could have it respond in a positive way or a negative way. Conditional formatting allows you the opportunity to communicate things in a visual way, a very right-brained type of response system. Another place that you could do a conditional format is right here with your total of expenses compared to the total of your running total. Again, if they don't match, then you've done something wrong. How you would set that one up, open up the conditional formatting on that, and you would want to say if this cell is not equal to. Okay, so actually I made an error. And so this is a good opportunity to show you how to delete a conditional formatting that you put in. Just click on that, hover your mouse over this box, you'll see the little can. Delete it. In order to have these two numerical values compare against each other, we actually need to create a custom formula. So if you come down to custom formula, this custom formula equals K9 equals T5. Done. Now you'll notice that it is showing green because K9, which is right here, and T5, which is right there, they're the same. If K9 equals T5, then it is green, right? So that's what that's saying, which means if we come in here and replace the equal sign with a greater than, you'll notice that we're not getting a response. If K9 is greater than T5, which it's not, then we would want it to produce a negative error. So I would click on that, and that's just if K9 is greater than T5. We also would want to add another rule if K9 is less than T5. Again, have it produce a red and be done. Now you're not seeing, you can't really tell that this is working right now because they do equal each other. So just for kicks and giggles, I'm just going to come in here and type 7. And now you'll notice that it is turned red because these two numbers do not equal each other. You should know that the conditional formatting of a cell is in no way affected by the formula of a cell. So you notice that I've completely changed what was in this cell. Previously, it was C9, E9, G9, I9 all summed together. I've deleted those, And just by deleting the formula, I've still kept the conditional formatting. So that's a really basic way how you can use conditional formatting with the custom formula. Just make sure when you're doing custom formulas that you start with an equal sign just like you do when creating formulas out here, because that's your way of letting the computer know that it needs to look for some sort of formulaic process. At this point, we are ready to move on to answer the question, how do you take this 1 month's of budget and apply it from month to month to month and then year to year to year? So let's assume that at this point we have finished the month of January. Let us assume that today is February 1st. What do Gideon and Hazel do? If you come down here to the bottom left corner, you'll see a little plus bar that says Add Sheet. That is going to be our February sheet. So you can just double click down there on that sheet. It gives you the opportunity to edit. I personally would recommend you format your tabs all the exact same way. Either you spell out the entire name of the month, all the letters, or you use 3-letter abbreviations. One way or the other, as long as you're consistent, and I will show you why that matters later. So this is now our February sheet. Well, you'll notice that there's nothing in it. What we can do, come up here to Alpha 1 and just click and drag and select everything inside of your budget. You would want to scroll all the way down to row 200. Now there's a faster way to do this besides just starting in Alpha 1, clicking across and dragging all the way down. And that is what I've done over here in column A. If you look in column A, this is actually all one big column. I merged this entire column. The way I did that is I just highlighted the column and I clicked the merge button. Just click on the column header, click merge. It is now all one column. Now, if I want to select my entire budget, I just click 1A and drag across. And now, because our budget header is merged from B to T and our column A goes down forever, we can just highlight those two and it will highlight the entire budget. And now you're going to copy it. Again, Control or Command C on the keyboard, and then come down to February and just select cell 1A and press paste. The first thing you'll notice is that the columns are not spread out in the same width as they were on the previous tab. So you just have to do a little bit of manual adjusting to make sure that this fits the way you want it to. One way that you can adjust, I think I told you this already, but in case I didn't, you can highlight all the columns. Do that by clicking on the column header and then dragging. You can highlight all these columns and then put your mouse on the little barrier between the two columns so you get this double-headed arrow. It doesn't matter which gap you do it in, and then double click. What that does is that auto adjusts the cells so that they are no wider than they need to be. Except there are occasionally weird exceptions to this, and I honestly don't know why they happen. Like here in column B, I don't know why column B is so large. So I'm just going to manually shrink that down. Doesn't need to be any bigger than that. Same thing with G. I find that even still doing the double click up here on the double arrow and then making a couple minor adjustments is much faster than having to manually adjust each column. So now at this point, this is February, even though it says January, right? So we have to change this. So just come up here and change it to February. But all of this information is January's information. So we can get rid of it. But before you start deleting anything, this is where this last month row comes into play. The purpose of the last month row, again, as I said earlier in one of the other episodes, is to allow you to very easily see what was spent last month. And I found that that is really helpful for me. All you're going to do before you start deleting any information down here is just up here, type in the number that you see in the running total. So in this case, it's 725, 349.32, 380, 0. Again, I'm pulling this number from the running total, not the balance and not the allotment, just the running total. Once you're done, all the numbers in this last month bar should be the same as all the numbers in your running total bar. Once you've done that, come down here to your comprehensive income tracker and do the same thing. Whatever total is here in the bottom right corner, put it here in the last month. That is going to have to be a manual entry every time. Last month data always is going to be a manual entry. I tried for a long time to see if there was a way that I could not have it be manual, and I'm pretty sure there's not. If somebody knows of a way, please let me know. Another update that you have to do is come down here to your assets table, transfer all of these numbers over to this box. You're going to have to type it manually. Once you have the month end tagged in at the month start, then you can replace the month end because we are in a new month and this new month has not yet ended with zeros. And yes, that is going to show like you're losing a lot of money. You're just going to ignore that. Until these cells actually have numbers in them, this data is not going to be accurate. Even still, I find that having a table for your assets is a very handy way of keeping track of where your money is. Go ahead and delete any data left over from previous ATM or cash out information, delete credit card payment information, delete all your old bills that you've already paid, because again, this is a new month, so you haven't paid these bills yet. Delete income information from the previous month. You'll notice that this information all goes back to 0, and come over here and delete all of your comprehensive expense tracker information. You can just highlight it all and then press the delete key. Pressing the delete key will not erase your formulas, nor will it erase your drop-down menus. You'll notice your drop-down menus are still here. The amount column will still be formatted as currency. The date column will still be formatted as date. Having done that, you'll see that the running total bar is now all back down to zeros, ready for a new month's of information. The allotment bar, that is where you're going to have to sit down with yourself and your spouse, if you have one, and decide what is going to go in there. Again, I'm going to hit this one more time. Make sure that the money that you allot, your total here, does not exceed your expected income. Spending more money than you make is a great way to end up broke and in debt. Simple mathematics. When you were a little kid and you wanted to go to the store and buy candy and Pokemon cards, if your total was $5 and you only had 4, you didn't get them. You just straight up didn't get them. Nowadays, now that we're all grown up and mature, somehow we think that there's a better way called I'll pay for it later, and I'll pay more because I'm paying for it later. Somehow that's better to some people's minds, and that's ridiculous to me. If you don't have the money, don't buy it. It's really simple. So having gone through the new allotment for the new month, you've updated the date, you've cleared everything out, and you're ready to go. This is now February. So now you go through and you fill out the month of February from start to finish, and then when it's March's turn, you come down, you create a new sheet, rename it to March, come up, grab it, highlight it all, copy, paste, adjust your columns, and proceed. Alright, so now that you have a tab for each month of the year, you're going to come to December, and we are now going to create a table that is going to allow us to see totals and averages in all of our columns and almost all of our data throughout the entire year. So what I've done is I've kind of assumed some data here. So I've filled in data for all the months of the year so that we can more accurately use our summary tabs. So go ahead and come down here and create a new tab for summary. And we're going to use just as much space along the x-axis as we did on these other ones. So we are using A through T, more specifically merging B through T if you'd like to have that extra little space on the left, which I do. So B through T. Okay, so I've merged the top row of cells and I put in our title, and I'm going to increase the font and format it just a little bit. You can bold, italicize, change the font color, change the fill color, etc. Having done that, I'm going to take this little box, and just like I did before, I'm just going to kind of block it out. We're not going to need it. Now to start, we're just going to take C through S. C through S are the exact same columns that we use for our envelopes. T is not an envelope. So C through S, you can just copy that from your previous month's tab. Copy, come on over, paste, and now you have all of your envelopes right along the top. Down the B column, we're going to do one row for each month. The row underneath it, in this case row 15, I'm going to take all of those cells over to T, and I'm going to fill them with a nice dark color. And then once I've done that, I'm going to roll it up so that it creates a nice little divider. I like having dividers because, again, it's more visually appealing. Underneath that divider, I'm going to create a row for averages and a row for totals. And I've also chosen to alternate colors like I've done before. I know things seem a little undone. I will fill those in a minute. The meat of this tab is all about what's in here, though. So let's do that first. What this table is going to represent is how much you spent on that thing in that month. For example, how much money did you spend on pets in the month of January? What about February, March, April? And basically, at the end of the year, you get to see how much did I spend on anything, on everything. How much money went into miscellaneous, utilities, everything. It's a nice, easy place to see a full summary of all the data that was spent. Now, so that you don't have to come in here and manually look at this data and then bring it over and type it in here manually, we are going to, again, create a bunch more formulas so that it pulls all that data for you. So let's start with January rent. We need to tell this cell where to go find the data we want it to show. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the cell and create equals, and we want this cell to equal January's rent, running total. How much money, again, running total is how much money you actually spent. We don't care about the allotment, we don't care about the balance, we care about how much was actually spent. So you're just going to click on that and press enter. And that jumped you back over here to the summary tab. And if you look up here in the formula bar, it's equals January exclamation point C5. Just to help you understand what you're seeing there and why it's labeled that way, Jan is the name of the sheet tab, and the exclamation point is the coding system for telling the program this is a sheet that I want you to go find. Jan is a sheet, the exclamation point is what tells the computer that that is a sheet, and then anything after that sheet is the cell inside of that sheet. So in this case, again, C5. What about February's rent? Well, we could, again, goes equals, jump over here, Feb C5, press enter. Again, the formula here is Feb C5. Now what you're going to need to do is enter that same data in for March and April and May. Now you could click on March and press the equal sign and come back to the March tab and then come up and click on the C5 and press enter. Or if it's a really simple formula to memorize, it's just the name of the tab with an exclamation point and C5, since rent is going to be the same. Since in all of these tabs, rent is at C5 every single time. So now you just come down here, equals April, exclamation point, C5. Equals May, exclamation point, C5. And you can just go down and do that manually. Okay, so now that we have all of our column C filled out, all of our rent from the entire year, now all you have to do is take January's rent by the bottom right corner with the crosshairs and drag it all the way across. And because we were smart enough to align these columns in the exact same order as we did throughout the month to month to month process, then it was smart enough to go, okay, so this one was January C5, this one must be January D5, January E5, January F5, and so forth. So all we had to do was do that once. You can now click and drag for all of these. In fact, you can click and drag and select the remainder of these 725s, the remainder of these numbers, and click and drag all of them over at once. And now you have all of this information appropriately programmed in for the entire year's worth of information. Now what we're going to do is look at the averages for each individual month. Now obviously the average of how much money are we spending on average per month for rent is, in this case, is going to be $725. But if you look at something like the miscellaneous column where the numbers are different, then that might be a little more interesting to know what the average is going to be there. If you click on this cell and press equals, yep, I thought so, the computer is going to be smart enough to know what you want. They saw the word average over here and they're like, oh, are you looking for an average? You can just click on that and press enter and it's going to give you the average. Just to show you how you would build that on your own in the event that the computer does not suggest it to you, you just put equals, average, open parentheses, and include the range or the individual cells that you want to have averaged. So if you didn't want to click and drag, you could go select, comma, select, comma, select, comma, all the way down. But in this case, we can just C3 through C14, press enter, and it's going to give us that average. Now grab it by the bottom right corner using the crosshairs, drag all the way across, and now you have your averages for your entire year's worth of spending in each of these envelopes. So now you can look and see on average how much are we spending for date night, on our vehicle, for gaming, for miscellaneous. For this particular example, obviously these numbers don't have a lot of variety for the sake of my sanity in building this video, but for you, as you can imagine, all of these numbers will be different month after month after month, and so being able to look and see how much are we spending on average on utilities might be a really helpful thing. You can probably guess that the totals is going to also be very simple. You're going to equal sum, click and drag, close parentheses. Again, it's the same set of numbers, C3 through C14, and then click, grab it by the bottom right hand corner crosshairs, drag all the way across. To double check and make sure it worked, you can just select any one of these cells, in which case N N3 through N14, N3 through N14. Yep, it worked. So now, with not a lot of work, we have all of our year's data for what we spent each month in each envelope, the averages for all of the envelopes for the year, and the totals. How much money did we spend in rent this year? How much money did we spend on gas this year? So forth and so on. Now I'm going to scroll a little bit over to the right here just to bring this side into a little more of a focus. Take this column T and I'm going to turn it into another filled with dark gray border, because again, that's how I like to do things. And here at U2, cue the music, we are going to add a couple new columns. This one we're going to have say expenses. The one to the right we're going to have say income. And the one after that we're going to have say month's end. Okay, so I've formatted that the way I wanted it to. It looks very similar to over here. By the way, you can use your Paintbrush to make that happen very quickly. In fact, allow me to show you how quickly that can happen. We've got 3 columns here. Take 3 columns here. Paintbrush. Ta-da. Takes you 3 seconds. That will also format these as currency, since that is part of the formatting of these cells. The information we want to put in the expenses column is going to be this information. How much did we spend that month? So again, this is T5 from January. So over here, I'm just going to put equals Jan exclamation point T5 and December T5. Okay, now that I've done that for the entire column, for the entire year, I now have a record of my expenses for each individual month. And once again, just create the averages, equals average, it knows what I want, press enter, and again, equals sum, yeah, it knows what I want, U3 through U14. Press enter, and now we have an average of how much did we spend each month throughout the year and how much did we spend in total throughout the year. So in this case, Gideon and Hazel spent $30,233 during the year of 2018. Income is going to be the exact same thing. You're going to come here to the comprehensive income tracker and pull the data from that total to represent the year's income, average, and total. By the way, this is exactly why I recommended that you use the same formatting system for all these months down here in the tabs. If you remember that all the tabs only have 3 letters, then when you're coming through here and you're typing June exclamation point Q19, you don't have to remember, wait, did I spell it J-U-N-E or just J-U-N? Just be consistent in that and that'll make this process easier. And for the last column, month's end, we are pulling that information from right here. We want to know what our total assets were at the end of the month. By compiling a list of that, we'll be able to see on average how much did we have in our asset pool each month. Now this time, we've got our averages here for the month end, but instead of giving us a total, because if we were to total this, that is not going to give us an accurate representation of how much money we have. If only it worked that way. What we're going to do in this one is we are going to just do a very simple formula of our income minus our expenses. So that's just going to let us know if we spent more money than we made or we spent less money than we made. I personally like to conditional format this cell so that if this is a positive number, it is green, and if it is a negative number, then it is red, so that I know whether I have bad spending habits. In other words, if I spend more money than I make. One more thing we're going to do here is we're going to take this row, again, I'm going to create a divider with it, and then I'm going to take the row right underneath it, I'm going to merge that into another title. And what I've done is I've created categories for each of the sources of income that Gideon and Hazel have in general throughout the year. So Gideon obviously teaches, as I mentioned. Hazel's big into tennis, so she occasionally does some tennis lessons. Hazel also gets money from her books. Gideon mows lawns during the summer, and babysitting is a job that Hazel will do occasionally. So these are pretty common standard forms of income, and what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of tally to see how much money Gideon and Hazel are making from their respective income sources. How you're going to do this is going to be a sum-if function that is going to span the entire budget from January to December. And here's how you're going to do it. Equals sum-if, and then you're going to have to come to January and say if, again, we need to select the range. So if this range, this is where the source is, right? So if this range has in this case, HS, which is the high school, right? So we're going to come back here. If that range, what's the criterion that we're looking for, has HS, then what are we going to add? You have to come back here and add the amount column. Now, at this point, we could press enter, but that would only work for January. So come back here, close the parentheses, and then what I want you to do is you're going to repeat the exact same function for February by pressing plus. Now what we're going to do here is we are going to create one long formula of multiple SUMIF functions. So let me show you how to do this. Now that you have this, we're going to copy, just come in here with your mouse, click and drag, copy that entire SUMIF formula, and then Control C, copy, and paste. And press plus, and then paste again. Press plus, paste again. Plus, paste again. And do that 12 times, one for each of the months. Okay, so now we have this formula in here 12 times. Each time it is separated by a plus. All we need to make sure is that in this case, the yellow has one for January, February, March, April, May. So all we have to do is come in here and change the second January to February, since that's the second month of the year. Come to this other one and change that to February. So each SUMIF formula has 2 month references. So you would need to change 2 Januaries to February. Then on the other side of this plus, you're going to change this January to March, since that's the next one in the line. March, and then go to the next one and change it to April, and so forth and so on. Okay, so what this tells us now is that Gideon made $28,800 in his teaching career. If you click on this cell, and you'll notice that the formula doesn't quite fit up here in the formula bar, you can actually grab that edge where you see the double-headed arrow and drag it down so you can see more of the formula up there. I frequently will do all my formulas up here rather than down here because I think it's a lot easier to see. So now that we have 12 separate SUMIF functions all piled into one formula, are we going to have to do that same thing for all of these? The answer is yes, but it's going to be a lot easier. So let me show you how to do this. So come back over here to where we have our newly created SUMIF chain of formula. Copy the whole biz, and then press escape to exit out of it. Come back over here to the next one in line, which in this case is the tennis lessons. Press paste. It's going to have the exact same formula, but instead of redoing all the numbers, now all we need to do is change it to tennis lessons. We don't have an example of that in here, but let's say that they wanted to do TL for their example, right? So Hazel does TL, and let's say she made $85 that month. So now we're looking for TL. We come back here and we're just going to double click where it says HS and go quotation mark TL close quotation mark. We can make this even faster by copying the TL, and now you can just double click and paste, double click and paste, double click and paste, and press enter. And now, granted, she only made $85 because I only did that here in the month of January, but that way Hazel would be able to tell how much money she made in the year from tennis lessons. And you do the same thing for books, and the same thing for mowing lawns, and the same thing for babysitting, and every other source of income that you want to keep an accurate measurement of how much money you made in that career or job. Hopefully you can see how this year-end summary, while yes, again, it's a lot of work, gives you the power of knowledge. It gives you the ability to understand what in the world is happening with your money. Where is it coming from? How much of it is coming in? Where is it going? Knowledge is power here, and an inability to recognize what it's doing is a very risky, very dangerous situation. I've set up this entire series to empower you. I've taught you how to create these formulas so that you can use them to create your own budget as best as you want to meet your own demands. Budgeting is more than just creating a fancy looking Google sheet with lots of pretty colors and fancy formulas. Budgeting is a mindset. So while this is a great place to start, I must advocate that discipline, the ability to delay gratification, is your most powerful tool here. Not this sheet. This sheet will not work if you do not have discipline and have the ability to delay gratification, the ability to say no to the things that you want. in order to get the things that you do want, the more important things, the better things, the things that actually matter, like paying for your children's education and having a retirement fund set in place and not working until you're 85 as a Walmart greeter. No offense to you Walmart greeters, we all appreciate your smile, but I don't think that's the dream job that all of us want to grow up to do. I wanted to keep this budget simple, and I think that we've done that here pretty well. The budget is built to be versatile, to meet your needs. If there's something that you want to do in the budget that I haven't talked about, look it up on YouTube. You're welcome to send me a question in the comments. I might be able to help you do what you're trying to do, but use YouTube, use Google, use me, whatever you can to try to figure out how to do what you want it to do. The more effective and simple that this budget is for you to use and handle, the more likely you are to do it, the more likely you are to handle your money wisely. Any budget is better than none. But I'm assuming at this point, since you made it to the end of video 4, that you're interested in this high involvement, lots of data type of budget. That's only going to work if you are willing to allot your money every month, to sit down with your spouse and have a conversation and figure out what your money is going to do, and then hold yourselves to that budget. Hey guys, I really appreciate you joining me for these tutorials. Hopefully you have found them helpful. I invite you to share these with anybody else that you think might enjoy this type of instruction or this type of budget system. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comments. If there are any other types of tutorials you might be interested in, feel free to drop me a line and I'll see if I can get around to them or if that's something that I have any experience in doing whatsoever. Otherwise, I wish you the absolute best of luck in your financial endeavors. Just remember, spend less money than you make. Take care. Alright, so now that you've put out tabs for 1 month out of every... Oh my gosh. Shoot me in the face. You're going to pull the data from the total of your comprehensive...